What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. 400 Legend testing time. We're back with straight wall hunting cartridge testing. We're doing gel block at 100 yards and like 15 or 20-ish yards. We want to see if there's a difference between a long out shot and an up close shot with this 215 grain Pwer Point. This exposed lead semi-jacketed soft point hunting round, or their Pwer Point round, 215 grains, like I said, going at an advertised muzzle velocity of 2250, is the only projectile available on the market as of the making of this video. 2024 fall hunting season, gun season coming up. This is what we have to work with. But don't worry, it is no slouch. This cartridge did take a deer for me last year. Let me show you what it can do in gel. It's pretty darn impressive. We're going to try to get some numbers for you if the Garmin behaves and the Caldwell downrange. We're not putting the Caldwell all the way down there because we don't want to lose it, but it'll be a little bit off the muzzle. We're using a 16-inch barrel. This is a T2 Armory made upper for us. This is chambered in 400 Legend, of course. Now, they don't make that as a commercial offering, but I'm just letting you guys know who made it, because of course you guys are going to ask. So thank you for T2 for making this for us a long time ago. We've been doing testing. Check out our playlist. We've already done extensive testing on this cartridge. It's very awesome. We like it a lot. This upper receiver is sitting on a Palmetto State Armory A2 lower. We have a SIG Buckmaster 3 to 12 power scope. No fancy anything about this. This is just an AR style hunting rifle. And at the distances that I hunt, which is 100 yards and in, usually maybe 130-ish at the most, this type of a rifle will do me just fine. So let's take a shot on the gel at 100 yards, and then let's back it up here, like I said, to 15 or 20 yards, and let's see what happens. All right, one round at 100 yards. I'm going to try to take my time. I'm going to let everything settle down really good, and hopefully we get a nice strike. Well, I definitely see we moved things. We had 1951 on the Garmin and 1871 on the Caldwell. So that's some pretty good energy. If we take the 1952 feet per second, that translates out to 1819 in the foot-pound range. So you saw the energy transfer on the block. I'm going to go ahead and show you the wound channel and all that. We did come out of the block, but we didn't come out of the block with much energy left. We just basically tapped the backstop, which I'll show you. All right, so right there at the bottom, here's where we entered. We just barely clipped the edge. That's that remarkable accuracy that we're dealing with. I aimed at the center of the block, but you have a decent wound channel, nothing crazy. I'm really surprised it stayed in the block. It went through the first 20 inches, no problem, and it kept slicing through to 29 inches where it ejected itself. But where it ejected itself, it just tapped that backstop right there. So you can see that little bit of a dent. This is just that stuff that they make sign material out of for like posters out front. And I can tell you that barely dented that. It just kind of left a mark on the paper. I did not find the projectile, but I'm also not going to look for it. So we do not have an impressive wound channel at all. We just have kind of a slight disruption here at the very beginning. Look at it from the top down. It's not going to show you too much different. I mean, it's going to show you half of a wound channel, I guess. So you can see how it really did ride the edge of that block. I'll go right to the edge and you can see it's kind of a half of a wound channel. It splayed out a little bit of copper right there, kept going down, and it did do some cutting and shearing effect in there. Jumped into the next block, and then you can see it finally just took the path of easy resistance and jumped out. So let's go ahead and try to hit this thing again. Maybe I can get a, I got to try to get a better hit on it, but not really impressed with what we've seen so far, because being on the edge, that should have been less density than the center of the block, and we didn't really see too much impressive stuff. All right, round two. Let's try this again. We had 2165 that time out of the Garmin. We have 2055, and I'm not even sure if I hit the block. 2055. Well, we're doing very good here. Our accuracy, now we're starting to get repeatable accuracy, so now I guess I'll have to follow this trend of aiming down here or moving my Kentucky windage. You guys know what I'm trying to say. So what we did is we actually put a bullet right here into the block. So you can kind of see it, there's a bullet hole. And then it rode up underneath this cardboard, shot up into the block right about there. So you see that charred mark, the bullet rode up and flew out. There is a piece of lead just sitting there, just chilling like a villain. So let's try this again, and I'm going to have to Kentucky windage the crap out of this. Not going good. All right, attempt number 3. I'm going to aim for the top left of that block and try to Kentucky windage it down to the center of the block. Well, I think we got it where we needed to that time. 2048.7 on the Garmin, 1948 on the Caldwell. All right, so we actually got a hit. You can see that it did shimmy the block around a little bit. It moved it, it jiggled it, and you can see when it hit the entrance part right there, look at that charring. Camera guy says that there is some smoke pouring out on the slow motion. But yeah, it had a good burning effect at first, much different than what we saw down there at the bottom. Let me get things straightened out with the tape and we'll take a look here in a second. All right, so wow, that's actually pretty nuts right there. I just looked at the slow motion myself and that thing was absolutely letting loose of some dirty gas. Wow. So you can see that charring effect in there from that. That is a pretty darn nasty wound channel right there. That is why it dropped the deer that I shot last year with this projectile. It dropped her in her tracks. She didn't have a chance. This projectile moves all the way down to 29 inches is where it stops. So you can see it's lost most of its petals if it had them. It's just kind of a flat part of that bullet left right there. It does have some copper jacket petaling that's still in there. It's laying pretty much face forward. But yeah, 29 inches. It's a piercing wound channel. Try to separate that one out from anything behind it. That's the piercing type of a wound track that goes back. It starts getting back rowdy though. The rowdiness is from about 14 inches and back. That's when the really nasty part of it is, but pretty darn good performance. Let's look from the top. Okay, there you go from the top. We do have, look at all that smoke, all that charring effect. That is pretty nasty. This block is definitely going to be toast. We're going to have to cut all that out, but look at that right there. We do see that when you get these type of projectiles at that type of speed, wow, do they have an effect. Twisting, turning, losing a little bit of lead fragments as we go. Jump into the next block. We start veering towards the outside of it, and I'm glad it didn't leave the block, but there you go. Actually, that thing is sitting very upright. I was kind of wrong about the perspective. Gel messes with you a little bit. You can see it there. Very nice looking, like I said, 29 inches, maybe 29.5 inches. We'll get that thing dug out for you at the end, but let's bring this thing a little bit closer and shoot it and see what happens. All right, we were about 15 yards off of that gel block and the chronograph up there. Our last shot, remember, was 2048.7. I have a pretty significant holdover. Hopefully I can hit this block properly, though. Wowzers, I saw some fire, probably from the barrel and probably from the block. We have 1791.6 right here, and we have 1762 on the Caldwell. I think we got a good hit there. The blocks are nice and messed up. We flipped that one around, so we hit it from the opposite end, and we stayed in the block. Let me get things straightened out and get the tape on it. Okay, remember we flipped the block around, so that's not the entrance of the other one. That's the exit into the other block. This is the new entrance with all that charring effect. As we come around to the side, boom, that nastiness right there. That is a wound channel I would not want to be any part of if I was a deer right there. Holy crap. Looks a lot like the other one. There are slight differences, but really they look very, very similar. That 100-yard difference, or let's say 80-yard difference-ish, not a very big deal right there. As far as the penetration, it did affect the depth a little bit, so entering that block with a little bit more velocity probably had a little bit more violent effect on the bullet, therefore putting the brakes on a little bit sooner. All right, separating out that wound track from that wound track, I would be confident to say that we have at least 13 inches, maybe 14 inches of major, major disruption right there. And then we have where it settles down a little bit, but still, depending on the angle you look at it at, you still have pretty good disruption going on. Then we do have where we start to settle down to more of the piercing wound channel, and the bullet is facing away from us. It settles at pretty much exactly 26 inches right there, where the other one is landed at 29 inches. Let me try to get you a top view. It's a little tricky with our light right here, but you can see that is one gnarly wound track. All right, hopefully you can see this well enough. Here's the one we just shot as opposed to the one that's pretty much the flipped opposite, but they're both pretty darn similar. And wow, nasty entrance right there. Nasty entrance right there. I'd say at either distance, we're doing pretty good damage right there. We got one landed there, and depending on our light, one landed there. So let's get them dug out, take a look. But yeah, definitely some pretty cool damage we've done. All right, here's the shot that made it to 26 inches up close, and here was the one that was a little bit farther out that made it to 29. There's not a whole big difference in the lead part of the projectile. They both shed a little bit. They both mushroomed out pretty good. This one has a little bit more of its copper petals intact, where this one seems to have lost them somewhere along the way. So flipping them over, yeah, for some reason this one just kept a few of those petals extra, as where this one lost all but one. So really, if it wasn't for the copper jacket being different, I don't think you could distinguish the two very much. Let's get some measurements on them. All right, trying to be fair and just measuring the lead portion, I would say 0.545. We could go ahead and we could, include those lead petals, and we can get out to all the way to 0.781 inches. Or if we included that one, 0.760 inches, but it's the lead that counts really. 0.0, I slipped off of it. There's a little bit of copper at the edge of that. 0.0585. Let's look at the other one. The one we shot at 100 yards appears to be at 0.599. I can take a look at another angle and get 0.580 or 579. Weighing the one that went out at 100 yards was supposed to be 215 to start with, is now 200.8, so lost roughly 15 grains. The one up close that has a little bit more copper intact is at 203.8, so that extra 3.8, that kind of shows it right there with those little pieces of copper. So an incredible amount of foot-pounds of energy, absolute destruction on the block. 400 Legend is one of my absolute favorite cartridges. It's a new one, but it's still one of my total favorites. It's the super 10mm, like I always say. I just wish a few things would go right with it instead of always being kind of a pain in the butt. It really has been a pain in the butt to test. It's hard to get anything to do with 400 Legend, really. There's just limited resources for it right now, but hopefully the cartridge takes off and that all changes, because as you can see, with their initial offering, this 215 grain Pwer Point, it's very impressive. We can only get better from there. There's all the information on this round out of a 16-inch barrel. Use it as you see fit. Hope you're enjoying this straight wall hunting cartridge series. Thank you for watching this video. Hope to see you at the next video. And until then, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting. Pretty soon, them deers.